Moses McCormick spoke over 50 languages, yes, 50, and inspired millions of people around the world to improve their lives by learning languages. Now, tragically, Moses passed away in early 2021, and so I thought, what better way to pay tribute than by shining a light on the methods that he used to learn so many languages so that you can bring the joy of language learning into your life and his legacy can live on. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ollie Richards and I teach languages through the power of story so that you can become fluent faster and live your best life. And the thing about Moses was that living a full life that's what it was all about.
My friend, he think he can speak Somali. He talk to him? Yeah.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. اسكورة مانتا. بيعان. بيعان. ولا ونكسانيا هاي. ولا ونكسانيا هاي. الله ما هدي. معلم وحنا هاي معلم. أباكي أمريكان. لكن إن كاستو وحنا هاي أمريكان وحن شعلها هاي أنا لو قضى أنبر.
Now we're going to get into how he learned 50 plus languages, and I'm going to show you some of the specific learning techniques that he used. So stick around for that. But first I want to talk about the why. Why learn so many languages in the first place?
I started learning languages when I was 18. Okay, when I was still living in Akron, Ohio. That's where I grew up at. That's my hometown. Basically, I started, it was back in 99 sometime. And I just like after I graduated, I just wanted to do something new, try something new and, do something different from what everybody else was doing. I thought it would be cool. So I went on ahead and I tried to learn Chinese. And I didn't really plan to do it for a long time. I thought I was just going to play around with it, see how it is and just stop doing it. But when I started doing it, I really started getting into it and started listening to the resources that I was using. And I started meeting actual people, like Chinese people, particularly on campuses, and going to like Chinese restaurants as well. And that right there is what really made me continue with learning the language, the interaction with the people,
Frankly, YouTube is often one big smoke screen, but out in the real world, language learning is real and it changes lives. If you think about the idea of learning 50 plus languages as a task that you have to complete, then it's going to seem silly and impossible to you. But if it really affects your life deep down, then you'll do it.
But when I started doing that, interacting with those people like that, that really pulled me in, and it really gave me the motivation to keep going with that language. Like I said, when I first started, I didn't have any intentions on doing it for a long time. I even had people discouraging me. They were telling me, oh, I had people in my own family telling me that and asking me, like, why would you learn their language? They don't like black people and stuff like that. This is what they were saying to me. So, I was like, okay, whatever. I could have easily listened to it and say, okay, you're right. Maybe I won't do it. But I chose to ignore that. And I just continued on with what I wanted to do. And I'm glad I did, because that decision has brought me a long way in life.
And as we've seen over and over in these breakdown videos, a desire to learn languages often starts with a deep need to change something in your life. And for a certain kind of person, and I'm just the same, if you're not supposed to do it and people are telling you not to do it, that only makes you more determined.
I remember back in the day, my best friend, he literally used to come over my house every day, early in the morning. I would say 7, 8 o'clock, just to go out and practice Chinese. We will practice Chinese we'll be Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. We'll do that for the whole day. And it was so addictive. He said, let's do it again tomorrow. Come over to my house again. We go back out to the mall. We go to a Chinese restaurant, Japanese restaurant, and just practice doing that every day. And it's so addicting. Because these people, you're actually able to have conversations with them, and you go back home and say, oh, I have to learn more. I have to learn more. I want to go back and use the new stuff. We used to do that every day.
Now remember, and this is just like me, because it turns out that me and Moses are the same age. Moses started learning languages before the internet was useful for anything. And this was how he got started.
If someone doesn't have a computer, they will have to just start off like a normal person. Just go to a Borders or a normal bookstore and just, get a phrase book, a course, and just work in the way they can work in. Because I didn't have a set method at the time. I was just, like I said, I was learning phrases and just interacting with the native speakers, just having fun. I wasn't really thinking about the process either. I just, over time I was learning a lot. And then, like I said, as time went by, I started noticing that, I don't know, I guess I would say things started becoming easier because I was doing Chinese, and then I eventually started doing Japanese, Korean, and things started becoming easier.
And this amazing attitude of just talking to people in his community, which he called leveling up, is what he became known for in his epic videos in supermarkets, shopping malls, and just about wherever he could do it.
How does this whole leveling up work, and why should people consider it?
Just use something very common. For example, like today, I went up to a guy and I asked him, "Hey, do you know where there's an arcade? We're looking for the arcade." And he said, "I don't know. I think it's down outside the mall somewhere." And that's very common. It's not rude to ask someone where a particular place is. So once you do that, it gets, get them comfortable. Then you can ask them kindly where they're from. Ask them, "Hey, I noticed that you have an accent. Well, may I ask where you're from?" And then they will, 99% of the time, they're gonna tell you where they're from. Once they tell you where they're from, then you can ask them in that language, "Hey, do you speak this language?" And they get surprised, and there it is. You broke the ice. Conversation started. You may even be there for an hour or two speaking with these people, because once you do that, they are very, very interested. They wanting to know why you're learning this language. It's like, even if, some people say, "Well, I'm not fluent yet, I don't want to do it." No, it doesn't even matter. If you say a couple phrases, a couple words, you touch these people literally.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that everyone go get phrase books and just learn a couple words and phrases and that's it. Don't take it to a higher level. Basically, what I'm saying is just get out there at the beginning, because it's motivating. It makes you want to learn more. Just because it's very, very motivating. Just because it's experience. You say, "Oh, I had this little conversation with the native today. I want to learn more. So when the next time I go level up, I will be able to, express myself more."
Whenever I think about people that talk about language learning, at least on YouTube, you've kind of got this dichotomy of, on the one hand, okay, let's get very, very good at one or a few languages. And then on the other hand, you've got, let's learn to communicate in as many languages as possible. And people generally fall into one of the two categories. And Moses obviously fell into the second category. And he often got criticized for people in the first category saying, well, he doesn't really speak those languages. But really, who cares? In my view, the only point of learning languages is to enrich your own life in whichever way matters to you. So if you ever find yourself kind of pressured into becoming better and better at one language, maybe due to unhealthy comparison with other people, then it is worth thinking about your own philosophy to life and asking yourself what really matters. Personally, I definitely lean towards the Moses camp of variety is the spice of life. And if you agree that variety is the spice of life, then hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for lots more variety from this channel. And look, I have to ask before we go any further, is it actually okay to film people like that? How does it actually work?
Here, particularly in the United States, you can record anywhere freely except in someone's home. It's private, so it has to be public. So normally when I do recordings, I don't really tell people unless the only time I tell them is if they notice I'm recording. Now, if they say, "Hey, you're recording, that's a camera," then I will tell them. And then most of the time, 99% of the time, they're okay with it. I tell them I have a YouTube channel, and they say, "Oh, you have a YouTube channel? What's your YouTube channel? And I'll give them my YouTube channel. I had a couple times where someone said, "Yeah, I don't want to be on YouTube," and I didn't use the footage. But that rarely happens.
So anyway, at the root of Moses' prolific learning of languages was a very clear philosophy.
From my experience, what has been very comfortable, the most comfortable way for learning a language is learning it naturally. Now, what does it mean to learn a language naturally? Learning a language naturally is basically learning without really scrutinizing too much grammar and worrying about too much stuff, just letting go. Okay, let go and have fun with the language. You can do this by getting a phrase book. The more phrases you learn, the more you're going to build in that language. So you can in a week, you can like take a day and learn like 5 phrases and just keep doing that. Just keep practicing them. Just you try to use them on a native speaker. If you could do that for like several months, man, I'll say 3 months. If you could do that for 3 months, you're going to definitely you're going to notice the difference.
Learn phrases, practice them, use them. Moses was all about taking the shortest path to communication. And when you watch his videos, it can sometimes come across as like totally random and haphazard, but there's a lot more to it than that. See, as he learned more and more languages, he developed quite a specific method that involved anticipating exactly how a conversation with strangers would actually play out, and then learning the specific things he needed for those conversations.
I first started learning interrogatives and learn how to respond to those interrogatives because in my experience, a lot of the native speakers ask you certain questions. So I guess I could say I prepare for them. I kind of prepare for these interrogatives. That's the first step I take. And I just expand off of those. Like if you ask me, well, where did you learn Chinese from? I will respond to you, well, I learned Chinese at home. I learned independently. I learn all of those first. I make sure I can understand the interrogative and I make sure I can respond to them.
People who never practice speaking in their language always complain that speaking is so hard, but that's usually because they're spending their time doing other things, like studying grammar, for example. Truth is, most conversations, especially with strangers, almost always follow the same kind of pattern. Oh, where are you from? How come you speak Japanese? Where did you learn? And you can prepare for and practice this stuff very deliberately.
Like I said, from my experience, like these questions, like I can go right now, if I go to a Chinese restaurant, a Cantonese restaurant, and I've never spoken to them before, I already know what they're going to ask me. Like when we start the conversation, I already know what they're going to ask me because I learned certain things first.
Right.
So that first conversation, that first encounter could actually last for about 30 minutes.
Right.
Because I already know what they're going to ask me.
In fact, Moses would do this right at the beginning of a new language. He'd learn to have basic conversations first and only then move on to learning from a textbook.
Because I'm learning certain content first.
Right.
Once I get through that first step, which I normally take, then I go to a book, something like a Teach Yourself,
right.
Which you can, they go through all types of different situations. I'll go through the book and just learn all of that stuff.
So speaking with strangers first, and then studying textbooks. Interesting. So what would he do with those textbooks? Would he do all the grammar exercises? Not so much.
I got all the levels for Pimsleur Italian. And this is my Pimsleur chart here. So Pimsleur 1 has been completed. Here. Pimsleur 1 has been completed, 30 lessons. And then Pimsleur 2 has been completed just this month. So I'm left with Pimsleur 3. Okay? And I tell you what, ever since I've been doing this, like I haven't spoken Italian with anybody. It's just all I've been doing was listening and reading. And I'm telling you, right now, like I understand a lot of Italian. It's crazy. And I've never studied the grammar. I haven't even studied the grammar yet. I haven't even touched the grammar. All I've been doing is listening and reading and going to certain sites where they have television shows and just watch this random stuff in Italian. I did that and I understand a lot, and I could actually speak a bit of Italian. So it's pretty sloppy right now. It's been 3, and if you do the math, if I'm on chapter 15 now and I've completed 2 levels of Italian, that's about 3.5 months.
So when he wasn't leveling up on the streets or in the supermarket, he was working hard, and his core activities are based on dialogues, which is unsurprising given that he's really so focused on spoken language, and he was going over these dialogues over and over again, listening and reading, and also shadowing at the same time. And shadowing is when you're reading aloud at the same time as you are listening, as if you're the one speaking. So you can see that he was really focused on relentlessly improving his ability to speak and communicate. And this is something to think about in your own learning. If you find it hard to speak, then what more can you do to prepare yourself for that speaking? And if you have a favorite Laoshu 55,000 video or moment, then let us know what it was in the comments so that we can enjoy that too. The interesting thing about Moses' method, he he was also perfectly happy to completely ignore things that he didn't think helped him to communicate or to learn, like grammar, for example. But he was even more extreme than that.
I just learned through a natural pace. I don't care about pronunciation. Okay, I don't care, especially as a beginner. I don't really care.
Now, I personally think that ignoring pronunciation at the beginning is kind of a mistake, and it's so much easier to get pronunciation right once, like at the beginning, than to have to unlearn bad pronunciation later. But again, what we should all aspire to is to know ourselves and know what works for us as individuals, because then you sure as hell don't have to care about what I think. Now, about 7 years ago, Moses and I and a couple of other friends were trying to coordinate a video that we were going to make in Cantonese, singing a Cantonese song actually. And unfortunately, that video never happened. And one of the reasons was that Moses was far too busy to commit to it. And he sent us a message and said, I can't do it because I'm on a schedule where I'm studying 4 languages for 6 hours every night. And I remember at the time thinking, wow, this is next level dedication. But as time went on, Moses became more and more committed to learning more and more languages, and he needed to find a way to be able to do that.
So the first thing I would like to show you guys is these charts here. Like I told you guys before, I take 1 year and I choose 4 different languages, right? This year I chose to focus on what? Cambodian, Icelandic, Lithuanian, and Estonian.
This is intense, and to do this, he would create a military-like schedule to make sure he spent enough time on each language.
So I choose those languages first, and I set like certain time I spend on them, like at least 3 hours. I will say 3 hours is enough for intensive study. So I spend a full 3 hours working on Icelandic, listening, reading some stuff, and making up sentences. For example, I'll go to Bulgarian, okay? So for Bulgarian, as you can see the parentheses here and the 7 marks. What are the parentheses for? The parentheses are for the chapters. So here I have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Where is it? Chapter 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I had to make another list over here for 10. So now I'm on chapter 10 for Bulgarian.
Here's a guy who knows how he learns, and this is where we should all be aiming for, understanding how we learn best.
I have this. This is my Polish reader. Okay. And this Polish reader is pretty good. I spend, this has several chapters. I normally spend a week on it, on the same chapter, read the stuff over and over again. And then once I'm done doing that, the next week I'll move on to the next chapter. That's just what I like to do. Some people may say it's too long, but I like doing that for a very long time. It's a lot of repetition.
Now, in case you missed that, he wouldn't just use dialogues. He's also reading stories too, which obviously I approve of heartily, as this channel is all about learning with stories. But he would spend a week on one chapter of a story, reading it over and over again. And this is straight out of the playbook of my story learning method. It's rule number 4, in fact. Read it, then read it again and again and again and again. There's a lot of repetition here with Moses and a lot of patience.
Your schedule doesn't have to be exactly like mine, and this is not in any particular order, but you need to have something to track your activities daily so you won't forget to do anything. Once you have checked everything on this list and X'd out, you can just relax.
So yeah, once you've done your 6 hours, yeah, you can relax, man. You've earned it. But again, if you think about it, if you have ambitions to learn a language, are your actions at the level of your ambitions? Moses's were. And to put in this superhuman level of activity, you've really got to know what you want.
I always tell people it depends on their goals or what they want to do. Like me, I love the new experience. Right. You know, I love the new experience, the new interaction with people. So I don't expect myself to learn all those languages to a crazy high level. So I go and say, look, I'm happy with A1. I'm happy with A2. I'm not going to spend all this time trying to get to like a C1 or whatever.
And all this time, he's also getting out there using these languages to touch the hearts of real people all over the place.
They lived in Korea for 6 years. Really? Wow. You know, 사실은 전에 제가 한국어를 말하는 러시아인에 만나본 적이 없어요.
진짜요?
네.
근데 한국어 진짜 잘하네요.
네. 과지 아니세요.
夸奖，夸奖你是有。Hey, me nói được tiếng Việt. Vậy thì giờ tôi muốn tất cả. Anh là Vietnamese. Anh sai đi. Ồ, 你会讲国语啊？你是中国人吗？我是中国人。你是中国人？我可以听懂中文。哦，你听得懂你听得懂我在说什么？Yeah, 我听得懂中文，我不可以说好。你听得懂，但是你不会讲。Yeah. Okay.
And these are people who speak languages that are very underrepresented in the West. So you can imagine the joy that it must have brought to someone who speaks Zulu or Lithuanian to come across an American guy in a supermarket who's taken the time to learn their language. It is really something. But of course, Moses also inspired a new generation of YouTubers like Shalmar, who is directly inspired by Moses and in turn reaches millions of people. So thank you, Moses. You left us too soon, but you've inspired us all.
Try it. If you never learned a language before, go ahead and try it. Just take my, just go ahead and do it.